Good afternoon, everybody. We are back again with more about Bhagavad Gita and the beauty of Krishna consciousness with Dr. Archana.
Namaskar.
So, Archana, could you again brief people who you are, what do you really do, and then let's take them to this beautiful journey that we've started about 3 days back. This is the 4th episode. And you can see all the last 3 episodes on my Facebook. Thank you so much.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Archana Kumar. I'm a homeopathic practicing physician based in Delhi. And we are talking on Bhagavad Gita. And it's a beautiful journey coming up and a lovely response coming from all of you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, like I said, it's an experiment, and I am Dr. Anu Mehta. I'm the pioneer in the field of meta health, matrix reimprinting, and advanced clearing energetics. I bring to you this episode because I think that life is always a repetition, like how Archana said yesterday. And then we are just repeating something and we're looking at something. So let's see, what are we looking at? What are the repetitive circles and patterns in our life? Okay, over to Archana.
Okay, now yesterday we've been talking about the body, the soul, mind, and Krishna consciousness. For everybody to know that today we are going to be touching a part of chapter 3. What all we have talked, we've discussed about Atma from chapter 1 and the grief of Arjun, that's again there, and what all Krishna is trying to teach Arjun, try to tell him to bifurcate himself from the Panch Mahabhut, which are the basic 5 elements in our body. Also, tell him the existence of Panch Mahabhut is only because of the supreme power of Krishna consciousness in the Panch Mahabhut. Now, today I am going to share with you that it's not just the Panch Mahabhut that is there, it is the existence of 23 tattvas that combine together and create the body, and then Maya, the illusion, and the mind.
So, can
Okay.
you make it easy for everybody? What is Tattva? And what was the before 5 stuff that you were talking about? Because people don't get those words.
Yeah.
So just explain the words that you've spoken.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
See, Panch Mahabhut were the basic 5 elements of nature.
Okay.
That they are the Bhumi, Jal, Akash, Agni, and Vayu, which we call the earth, fire, water, air, and sky. Sky is also addressed as ether or void. Okay. Now, these are the basic elements of nature. They are the most important 5 parts of our body. Our body is made of the 5 elements. You know, when we talk to somebody from Ayurvedic part of medicines, I'm sure people must be aware of Ayurveda. It's an ancient Indian tradition treatment of diseases. Ayurveda says that any of the 5 elements, when they deviate from their normal proposition, position, and intensity in the body, it causes diseases. It can be any of the 5 elements, and their deviation leads to particular diseases. Okay. Now, when we talked about tattva, tattva is the basic, the ingredient that we call. So there are basic 23 ingredients which we are going to be talking today. Besides the Panch Mahabhut, we are talking about the 23 tattvas. Okay. Now here what is happening, we will start talking about the elements that we've talked. Then we are talking about the Gyanendriya, the Karmendriya, I'll translate everything, the Karmendriya, and the rest of the 3 uh, portions or ingredients of tattva, which we call man, buddhi, and ahankar. Okay, I'll start with the Panch Mahabhut again,
Mind,
which,
buddhi is intelligence, and ahankar is your ego.
yes, ego or pride. Now we start with the Panch Mahabhut. We have already talked about them. The Akash, the Bhumi, the Vayu, Agni, and Jal. That is air, water, sky, earth, and I think I mentioned all of them. Okay. Now, basically what is happening that besides this, there is something called Panch Gyanendriya. They are the senses which perceive. The eyes have vision, they see, ears, they hear, mouth talks, skin feels the touch, and the nose has the sense of smell. So they are the five senses through which the body perceives. You feel the external environment translate into through the neurons in the skin through the body, and it goes to your brain and it tells you it is hot or cold, it is a beautiful fragrance or it's a smell of a manhole. All of these senses. Okay. Now after this we come to the karmendriya.
I just want you to stop there. This, if you go back into the Rudolf Steiner, into his literature, the Waldorf has also used and said the same thing, that there are 6 senses which help us to perceive our environment, which is the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, that is the taste, and your skin, which is the touch.
For some reason. Okay. Yeah. Now, besides this, there are 5 karmendriyas. Gyanendriyas, karmendriya, the 5 senses we've already talked about. Now, they are hand, feet, mouth, upswar, and guda. The stomach, the upswar, mukh, mouth, feet, and the hands. Now, these 5 karmendriyas, they are the one who perform the action.
Archana, I think you'll have to say this once again with
Okay. Okay. Uh, the hand, mouth, feet, legs, basically.
show you my legs, guys. And
Yeah. Stomach and the abdomen. Okay. The 5 of them. They are performing action. So they are karm indriya. They perform the karam in the panchabhautik body.
Yeah, very good.
All right. They are doing the action.
Very
So
good.
karmendriya. Indriya are the organs, sense organs or organs, indriya, and action oriented. So karmendriya. All right.
So far we've looked at 2 different kind of senses. The first one is the senses which are helping you to perceive the environment. The second ones that Archana is talking about, the Karam Indriya, is all about, Indriya is organ and Karam means karna, that means to do, is all to do with your hands, your feet, your stomach, your
Liver.
your mouth,
and liver.
And
liver.
Liver. Thank you.
Okay. Then there are the 5 ras that we call. Now ras is shabd, roop, ras, gandh, and sparsh. I'll translate it in English. Shabd is the word that we speak from our mouth. We are unifying all of them, all right? Second is sparsh, the sense of touch, which we perceive through our skin, okay? The third is roop, the sense of eyes from which we perceive the beauty, roop, all right? Ras is the sense of taste, our tongue, okay? And gandh is what we smell. So, Shabd, Sparsh, Roop, Ras, Gandh. Now here I would like to take the opportunity to tell everybody that all the animals, for example, a deer. Deer has a beautiful fragrant organ. There's a faint smell that comes from the navel of the deer, which we call kasturi. Okay. And the deer is smelling because every animal has just only one of these five vices. They're basically vices, all right? But a human being is either cursed or blessed by all five of them. I'll give you few examples. Like for the deer, the deer is, there are times when the scent becomes very strong. It actually overpowers the deer's mind, and it goes around running all through the jungle, the forest, looking for the smell. So there's a very beautiful sentence that we say, Kasturi base hiran ke nabh mein. And it is going and wandering all through the forest like a mad person. So just one vice of smell drives the deer crazy, especially during the times when it's the mating season. And during those times, the fragrances become very overpowering. All right. So just imagine that fragrance thing gets the deer to get mad. And we as human beings have all the five vices. Another example, elephants have a very strong urge to be touched by the female elephants. It's called the sense of sparsh. And you know how elephants are hunted? Big ditches are dug, covered with grass, and an silhouette of a female elephant is made, and there are just basic few differences between a male and a female. So they draw on a cardboard or a wood. They place it right after the ditch, and the elephant during the times when they are in the must, that's the time where their hormones get very overpowering, and this is the mating time. So they run towards the female for the sense of sparsh, and they fall in the ditch and they are captivated. So just imagine what Krishna is trying to tell us, that when these animals, insects, there's another very beautiful example of patanga. That's an insect which has a tendency to get attracted to a beautiful candle flame. It is so attracted that it wanders around the flame until and unless it actually lands up getting burnt in it. So these insects, animals, they have just one vice. And for some reason, they land up either dying or getting captivated. They do not lead a free life. And just imagine that we human beings are overpowered by all five of them. I will repeat them. Shabd, Sparsh, Roop, Ras, Gandh. That is the word, the sense of touch, the sense of looking. You know, like anything beautiful and your neck just turns. That, we can call it for men looking around or even as females. Anything beautiful, our just neck goes like this. Wow. All right. So
You,
that,
you often find, Archana,
yeah.
women doing this to women.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see
Yes.
walking
Yes.
out in a mall, and she's very well dressed, or a marriage where a woman is very well
Very
dressed,
prettily dressed. Yes.
and the woman will look at the woman from down to up like this.
Yes, they do. Absolutely right. They do.
Yeah.
So that is Roop. Ras is the sense of taste. Now just imagine, I like XYZ cuisine and I cannot control my tongue. I eat and eat and eat, and then I'll end up having Digene or Carboveg in homeopathy or Pulsatilla in homeopathy. Why? Because there is no control over that sense of taste, and I have no control because overeating has led to that problem. There's a very nice sentence that, or the combination of words which are there: hotel, health, hotel, and hospital. Your health is healthy, you're great, you're leading a great life. You go to a hotel, you gobble food which is not right for probably your age, your digestion, your stomach, your throat, and anything. You eat and eat and eat. It is this particular taste. That is the vice behind it. And where do you land up? Hospital. Okay. So, and Gandh. By whenever we, by chance cross the road where there is a place where the dustbins are kept, or a place where all the garbage is getting collected, there is a tendency we just go, because we can't take it. We don't want to take the things. I don't want to see that hot babe and turn my eyes. It just happens. Why? Because you are controlled by these vices. And the rest three are man, buddhi, and ahankar. Man is mind, buddhi is intellect, and ahankar, as Anu mentioned, is ego. So there are 23 of them, and we are completely ruled by all of them. So just imagine the plight of a human being. You really want to be happy, and you have 23 buttons, which whenever they decide, they go on and off, and you are dancing like a puppet.
So basically what Archana is saying, we have no control about how we feel about what we are looking at, the taste that we are caught up in, the smells that we are caught up in, the way we are leading our life is more like being caught up in the subconscious, in these senses, more than using. And the more we are obsessed with this, maybe the sense of touch, only if I could get my mom's touch. Just like that elephant, only if I could have my loved one holding me and giving me that feeling of touch and that feeling of that I belong. Because we human beings connect all this with belonging and with us feeling secure in that space. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now, once we know that these 23 tattvas or ingredients are ruling us, what Krishna is trying to tell us, that there is a very simple way to get out of all of them. That is to evoke the power of Krishna consciousness. Like yesterday, I mentioned that even an act of simply offering a glass of water can be, which is a karam, can be your bhakti, and it is full of the realization, the knowledge that we are receiving from Krishna consciousness, that any and every action, activity, karam, is not small. It can be anything from creating the Taj Mahal to offering a glass of water to anybody. It is only your intent, your intention, your mindset behind performing that activity or karma. So basically, it is something like any activity which you are doing with the consciousness of doing it selflessly, devoting it entirely to the knowledge of Supreme Krishna, is called Nishkam Karma, where you are not expecting anything in return. We talked about this in detail yesterday. I had to touch this again because today we are again going to talk about Gyan, Bhakti, and Karma.
So again, Gyan means intelligence, Bhakti means devotion, and Karam means what you're going to be doing.
Yeah. Now, there are a few lines which I am not quoting the shloka, but I can tell you the number of shlok. If anybody interested can go back to Bhagavad Gita and read it. There's this particular shlok, shlok number 16 in chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna ji is telling us that in human life, see, we realize that all the animals have at least one of the vices, and we are dealing with all of them, 23 of them. All right. Now, in human life, it is very difficult to attain satisfaction. See, there's so many things which distract us once we get up in the morning till night. Whatever karam we are doing, our karam can be just being a homemaker, or being a professional, or just being a butcher, like we discussed yesterday, or just being a, a, a person who weaves, like Kabir Das ji, or it can just be a person who is driving a cycle rickshaw. It can be any karam. But karam which is done with bhakti and the knowledge that I am performing this karam and I am attaining full satisfaction out of it. You know, please understand this. Why do we do anything? To be satisfied, to be happy. Money comes to us by virtue of performing that act.
Archana, most of the people that I know do
Yeah,
work. And right, like we explained yesterday also, that children today, even before they are born, we
yeah,
have our expectations.
absolutely. Yes, we
And to
do.
be really, really honest, people are doing things to either run a house, to keep their wife happy, to keep their husband happy. We are doing most of the times things to please other people. We
Yes.
are not doing it with that bhavna of devotion that I'm doing it and leaving it. That's not.
Anu, that is because we were not ever made aware of it. Nobody ever talked about it. No mother, no father, no parents, they never talked about it. When do we tell our child that whatever you do in your life, please learn to make yourself happy first. If you are not happy yourself, how can you make your wife, your parents, your children, your pet, or anybody happy?
Thank you.
And how will you be happy if you are not a satisfied soul? So that is what is coming from here in this particular shloka, that a person who is living only for satisfaction, if I am satisfied, if I am happy, I am sure that I can make you happy. So what he's saying in shlok number 16th of chapter 3, that a person who is living only for satisfaction, for being satisfied, you have to have umpteen amount of gratitude in you. You cannot be satisfied until you have gratitude. Like yesterday we talked about making a cup of tea. If I have gratitude for those 11 elements, I will never have ego to trouble me, ahem to trouble me. And I will never say, how was the tea that I made? Because the person who's having that tea is going to take that sip and say, ah, wow. It is that satisfaction that I'm talking about. And until and unless, again coming to that shlok, it means living for the satisfaction, and the satisfaction of such person is attained from all these senses, is the person who lives in me. Me is Krishna consciousness. Krishna is telling Arjun that if you are satisfied, that if I earn Z amount of money and I am capable of being happy and satisfied and not being greedy for more and more and more, I am sure to make people around me happy and satisfied. But the condition is I have to be happy and satisfied within myself. And we cannot get it without being of humble, without being full of gratitude to everything. Jiska sentence is there in Gita, that you have to have your humbleness to everything, jad or chetan. That means material and immaterial. The minute you are full of gratitude to that slipper, the minute you are full of gratitude to that pair of glasses, you will never ill treat anything and you will be full of gratitude and satisfaction from within.
So can you focus a little bit more on greed, because this seems to be one of the reasons of COVID-19. This also seems to be one of the reasons of the downfall that happened in 2008, where a lot of people lost their jobs, the economic meltdown, the banking industry going down. I always have felt that greed has never created anything good in long run. But can you explain the greed over here a little bit more? What exactly, according to Bhagavad Gita, is greed?
Anu, see, we all are born in our own places, wherever, whichever family, society, culture, caste, country, wherever we are born. All right. Now, when we were there in the womb, according to our Shastras, we have learned that the soul is actually hanging upside down in the womb, and it is requesting for 9 months to God to liberate it of all the dirt and and the, you know, all the gooiness and everything. The soul is saying, please God, get me out of this place. And I promise that the aim that you have told me, aim of being born as human being, is to get moksha through karam, gyan, or bhakti.
Okay,
These are the three parts.
please repeat what is
I
that?
will, I will. Now, what is happening that when soul is hanging upside down in the womb, it is really requesting God that you are giving me birth as a human being. Please liberate me of these tortures in the womb that are happening. And I promise that the path that you have taught us of moksha, which we can attain through karam, which is action, gyan, which is knowledge, and bhakti, which is prayers. All right. Now, these are the three paths that we are taught to attain moksha.
And
What
what
is moksha? Is freedom. Freedom from this cycle and recycle of birth and death. Because it is said that we have had many births before we were born as human beings. We have taken birth as ants and animals and insects and mammals, and every yoni, every birth, every species, every animal. And then human is the last birth, which has intellect in it to the extent that it can get down to the path of bhakti. And bhakti is prayer and worshipping the Lord, and attain freedom from the cycle and recycle of birth and death. Okay. Now, greed is something which we get after we are born. We start greed from childhood. And sorry for mentioning, but to a large extent, even our parents are responsible for it. A child does not know what greed is. You know what the mom does? You do this and I will give you this. So the greed starts there.
the heckling?
The heckling, the innocent child. Look at a baby, you know, that smile, that innocence, and that beauty. And after a worst of day, you come back home, you look at your child, look at any baby. Why only your baby? Any baby, infant I'm talking about. He just looks into your eyes and gives you that beautiful smile. You know why you love a baby? Because it doesn't have any greed. Try feeding a baby beyond the time when its stomach is full. It's going to do brrr and just spit all on you.
Yes.
There is no greed there. And that's the only reason we love babies so much. But the minute the baby starts developing its intellect and learns to haggle its way around,
Is,
the act of, yeah.
isn't force feeding also part of the whole story?
Yeah, that's what I said. That's why the baby just spurts it out, doesn't want to take it in. It's not greedy.
Yeah.
I'll give a very small example on greed. It's just a small incident. It's something like there was this big bag of grain. lying on the floor somewhere, anywhere on the road. We sat and observed that a bird came, it pecked, ate its stomach full, went back, called its partner, they ate, and they left. And then I saw a few cows coming there. They came, they ate nicely, and they left. And then a human being came. You know what a human being did? It tried to collect, or he tried to collect a part of grain, and then he said, "No, why just a part?" He picked up the whole sack of grain and went. Now, can you see what I'm trying to tell you about greed? This is greed. Now, God says that the day you leave your entire well being on me, the way an infant leads everything on his parents or mother or the nurse or the caretaker. Like if we assume that God, who is actually the person who gave birth to us and who is taking care of us and who is himself in the end responsible for us to perish, die, and do the cycle of birth and rebirth. Do you think that when he could take care of us in the womb, the mother doesn't know the eyes are formed or the stomach is formed or this is formed. The mother doesn't even come to know till a certain time that she's pregnant. Forget about formation of the organs. I'm a doctor myself. I understand all that. So it is that creator, that God who is creating you in the womb. He is the one who's responsible for taking care of us. But because of our ego, our ahem, we say, "Main, I," the small I of Arjun. Okay, what I'm trying to tell you, that God says that if you leave your yoga shame, this is another very important part of Gita, that the minute you leave everything, your yoga shame is every action and result and desire of yours to me, the way an infant or a baby does. He is fed, he's clean, he's made to get ready, he's made to dress up, I mean, everything of his is taken care of them by the nurse, the mother, the caretaker. In our case, it is the caretaker, our God, or our energy, or supreme Christian consciousness, whatever you want to call it. He says, just leave it on me, it'll be done. But because we are so full of our greeds and desires and are this basic problem of not being satisfied of what we are.
Or is it a basic problem of wanting to be in control?
Yeah, it can be that also, depending on the different situations.
To cross over and not become the small I, but the big I.
We have to learn to do that.
Yeah, so it feels as if we want to become the Krishna in us, and we want to then say, I'm not the small I, I'm the big I.
Yeah.
And isn't that what's probably happening when the parent is telling the child, but the child is probably behaving like the parent to the parent and is then adopting the big I rather than the small I. I
Yeah.
felt that when you were talking, this is a very important question that came into my head. When you were talking about that we as human beings for 9 months are hanging upside down, asking God for moksha, asking God for rihai, asking God for that freedom at that point, and then telling him that when we come out, we will do our karma, that is, we will do what you're asking us to do. How can then we make that a happy time? Because if imagine I don't even know that my child is hanging inside and is actually feeling as if he wants to be liberated and I am actually his first cage. That is a very scary thought over there. What is that about?
It is. That's what they say, that Atma has to go through the torture of womb and the torture of birth to live through that. That is why they are saying that as our parents, if we can, if you remember, there are times when people say, when somebody conceives, like especially I remember doing it, that if I come to know that a lady has just conceived, we tell them, think good thoughts, think positive things, hang positive people's pictures around you. Nobody would like to hang Ravan around him. They'll hang Krishna or Jesus or any positive, or even Mother Teresa or anybody. Why do we say that? because that energy of looking, and because we've seen those people and their deeds which are so positive, they create a positive vibration in the womb on the soul that is coming in our body, which we have conceived. So we are trying to transfer that positivity to that particular soul. We are trying to, teach that. Whereas, like in today's time, I see this so many cases where even conception itself, Anu, is very difficult, which was not there, I think 10, 12 years before.
Absolutely. Dr. Patki was there on that day,
Yeah.
fertility, and he very cleverly pointed out, not during the talk, but this is what he said to me when we were having one-to-one chat in how do you say, a rehearsal round.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the real problem? He asked me like this, what's the real problem? And I said, tell me. He says, the real problem is today, the couples do not have time for each other and they don't make love often. That's the real problem.
That's the real problem.
And then they come to us and say, we are planning out a baby. How does one plan out a baby?
I don't know.
Is what he said. And it really struck me that what he's saying is that we are not doing our basics. We are somewhere lost in that whole greed of being someone.
Anu,
And standing life into this world is giving that life to someone rather than giving that bit to yourself. That
exactly.
distribution, like that sparrow that you said came down. First she ate and then called 4 other people.
Yeah.
If we find money anywhere, guys, you really need to think about this. If we find money somewhere, you're going to be distributing it, or are you going to be cleverly putting it in your cupboard?
I don't think distribution would ever come in mind.
In fact, standing out there and throwing money from the top because he had a lot, people would call him mad, Bavra.
I know, crazy. He's gone berserk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, but that's how greed comes in, and that is what we have to learn, and that is what the beauty of Gita is teaching us, that we have to learn it from the womb. Our mothers have to teach us. They can only teach us when they learn it themselves. I am not asking you to renounce and leave everything and just get into a sannyas yoga or anything. No, no, don't do that. That's not anywhere mentioned in Gita, because Gita completely emphasizes emphatically on karam. You cannot leave your karam. Where you are born, what you've educated as, what you have learnt in life, whoever you are, professional, non-professional, homemaker, iron person, or a cobbler, or anything, any of the professions, it is your karam, you have to do it. Only thing is, include Krishna consciousness. That means include bhakti in your karam.
Bhakti means devotion, guys.
Devotion. That devotion has to be there. Like, again, I'm repeating myself. It can be anything. Earning money. Money is not bad. Earning money is not bad. But that should not be your only aim. You're working, you're professionals. Be just, be kind, be nice, do good to your subordinates, and see the beauty of karma. And if,
I that when people are even trying to be good to others, and let's take a simple example. When someone is dying on the road because they've had a road accident.
Yeah.
You remember at one time when people would take that person, gentleman or the lady, to the hospital because
I do it every time, never missed it.
Not today, but back in time, the police would actually sit down and say, you are responsible for this story. And people started getting out of helping people because it's like, if I get into your mess,
I'll be caught.
And I'm getting caught in a web of pain and hurt when I'm trying to reduce your pain or hurt. Could you address that little bit over here?
Exactly. Okay. Now, that was definitely a very big issue here, especially in our country. We've gone through it. But that did not deter a lot of people to do the good deed. So the thing is that again, if somebody is dying, and okay, your example is very nice. I'll just cite this more further. You see an accident, all right? There are just two options. You see the accident and you say, oh God, bless the soul, take care, and you just drive off. And then it's the other you who stops, sees if you can help with any kind of first aid. If it's a girl involved, a lady involved, a elderly person involved, a child involved, take a adequate action according to that. Inform the officials, inform the parents or the family, and try and take the person to hospital. I am talking this through personal experience. The amount of satisfaction that night I feel when I'm sleeping, there is no comparison to that. So put yourself in those shoes, people. Whatever, it's a very small thing. We do it, it's our attitude. It is in every country. It has nothing to do with this particular country or that. It happens everywhere. And there are just two options. You see, you walk away, or you're there and you're standing till the person gets what is required or any of the family members have reached there. Anu, that satisfaction, that happiness, and that one sentence of the family member telling you that you were the God there, it is uncomparable.
So, taking the same example further,
Yeah.
should we wait for someone to have an accident and then help? Or
No.
should we repair our roads and educate people so that they don't
Yeah.
have accidents?
We need to just mend our ways instead of just complaining of bad lights, visibility, roads, people driving harsh on the roads. We just need to be correcting ourselves, mending ourselves. That is the base of Gita, that, oh Arjun, please check yourself. If you are happy, if you are fighting your fights properly, you will be able to take care of everybody and everything around you. But if you are not happy, you're not doing the right things, you're not taking the right decisions required, you will never be happy and you will never be able to make anybody happy. This I request to everybody. Please introspect. What is that not letting you be happy? We have all gone through this phase of lockdown. We have all faced it. We are in our places. Can you imagine? Our homes are our homes. And we had issues and problems and fights and things there. They are our places. After the work, we look forward to go home. So please realize what in your space, what in your house is not letting you be satisfied and happy.
I
What in the four wall is disturbing you?
completely agree with you. When we were doing the programs on the Zoom in the evening, anytime when they were not muted, people were not muted, we could hear people screaming, shouting at each other.
Yes.
People didn't know how to spend time with each other. It was like you said, like the uterus was the first jail or the cage. This was their cage. And all of us wanted to go out like a little bird comes and wanted to come back and sit on the branch where we could rest. But
And then go back again.
branch was corrupted.
Yeah.
It was corrupted with our intention. It was corrupted with our greed. It was corrupted with everything.
Yeah.
Feel happy because we came back to a place which was not heaven, but a created hell.
Anu, I will share my own experience. For me also, the lockdown wasn't easy. But there was a time, probably because of, I would get tired physically, yes, because there was a lot of work which I was not used to doing. We have aides here. So we are leading a very luxurious life. Trust me, we are. Okay. So when the aides were not there, I happened to realize one day, I was telling my partner that, today a very funny thought came to my mind that as a child, when I used to play with my kitchen set, we all had our kitchen sets and our cup and tea, we would have a tea party and an evening. I said, today I just got up and gave myself the thought that my kitchen set has suddenly enlarged itself. It has grown big and it has taken shape of a beautiful kitchen where I'm playing kitchen again and I'm leading my life. And trust me, after that day, there was not a thought of being tired for working for my people or doing anything. So any work, if you can make it a play, will you ever be unhappy about it or unsatisfied about it? It's as simple as that. It's a matter of only your thought to be changed.
Interesting. I heard Kirti Bakshi saying 2 days back, and she was doing the webinar, and I must mention her here. Most of the parents
Yeah.
and even spouses with each other,
Yeah.
we sit down on the table to eat food, and that is one place where literally Kurukshetra's war is happening, because you're sitting over there teaching each other and becoming a little Krishna and telling the Arjuna what to do when there is really no war happening. All you need to do is sit down, look into each other's eyes, smile, and eat.
Yes.
That was one place where during the COVID time, which is still going on, but we're not in the lockup like we were before, you were sitting on the dining tables and people's maximum fights were in the kitchen or on the table, where
Yes.
someone felt offended, someone felt belittled, someone felt like a servant, someone felt that they didn't
Exactly.
get you. And we found small things to be unhappy. I want you to conclude this session by talking about what is happiness, and then we come back again tomorrow. Is that okay with you?
Great.
Wonderful.
See, happiness again is very personal. I am trying, there's a very nice word in homeopathy that we use. It's called individualization. All right. Happiness is individualized. I can be happy with just looking at all my family members around me, helping me, contributing me in my work or not, but just having them around me can make me happy. Or I can only be happy if each and every member is only contributing their bit in my house. So it is completely individualistic. And yes, only a person who is full of gratitude can be happy. It is very difficult for you to be happy if you do not have gratitude for each and everything in your life. There is another very small doha that I would like to quote, which doesn't really go on with happiness, but that is the crux of not being happy. It goes according, I'll speak it in Hindi and then I'll translate it. It says, Maya mari na man mara, mar mar gaye sharir, आशा तृष्णा ना मरी कह गए दास कबीर. Maya is illusion, man is mind, and Trishna is the craving or the desire or greed. So they're saying illusion, mind, and the craving and desires, they do not die. They are like the three diseases that we have: TB, diabetes, or let's say cancer. All right. They do not die. Okay. But what dies? Mar mar gaye sharir, the body dies. You take birth, you are engulfed by these diseases, and you live your whole birth and you die. Okay. Now, what Lord Krishna is saying, Kabir Das ji is saying again, Asha Trishna Namari. Hope and Trishna again. Trishna is desire. वो भी नहीं मरती, it doesn't die. कह गए दास कबीर. You perish, you die, but your illusion, your mind, your craving, and your desires, they are transferred through the soul to the next birth. So please ponder on this particular doha, and we shall continue with it tomorrow again.
So thank you very much, everybody. I just want you to know that actually happiness means being lucky if you go into the dictionary. And to feel lucky, you need to make other people feel lucky. There is no way you can be lucky without people. There is pure interdependence with everything which is living and non-living in this world. So let's bow down to the universe, to what we are made up of, and let's try our best. And I don't like that word try.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's make ourselves happy
Yes.
tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anu. Thank you, everyone.
You're finding this. If you feel this is worth it, we will continue or we'll drop it. So you have to be the one who has to tell me whether we are doing some and creating some meaning in your life, and so that we know that we are doing something that you really, really are benefiting by. This is for you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
No, thank you.
Namaskar.
Bye bye.